sitting for a second, just to explain the Ujjayi breath we're doing this morning. Right through, we'll be using the Ujjayi breath. And this is specifically for Gary, just so that he knows what we're talking about. Otherwise, it's all foreign words. But just to remind you, it's that breath where if you were cleaning a window, you go, that sort of feeling, except your mouth's closed. So that ha sound is happening in the back of your throat, but it's coming out through your nose, if that makes sense. So it's a breath that a lot of us use when we're exercising at the gym without realising it. But what people do tend to do at the gym is they stop after the in-breath and they hold their breaths. And that's really not good for your thoracic area. So we need to continue the breath with the exhale, remember. So if you want to just practice with that one, everybody, just have a go. Close your eyes, try and attach yourself to the back of your throat. It's a little glottal valve there that we're closing off. So you're inhaling through both nostrils. As you exhale, you kind of make that ha sound, but the exhale's coming through your nose. So you'll start to hear it. Take 2 or 3 of those, trying to get that sound in the back of your throat. You can take it gently or you can take it a little bit stronger. If I was sitting beside you, I would hear this noise if it was a bit stronger. It's a feeling, it's almost a feeling of it coming out your ears as well if you go quite strong. You don't want to go too strong. But it's also called the ocean breath. So it's that sound of the waves you make as you inhale through your nostrils, and more on the exhale you get the noise. So try a few soft, try a few sort of middle range, and try a few a little bit stronger, that if you imagined you were doing something that you really had to lift something quite heavy, you would release through that stronger breath. So it's not a force, it's a release feeling that you're doing on the exhale there. So it's a breath we all use without knowing it's got a fancy name in Sanskrit, Ujjayi. But it's a helpful one. It's also very helpful emotionally to deal with things. Right, okay, we've got a hold of that breath. We're going to use that right through because it's quite helpful in these poses. We're going to start first of all on our backs, and we're going to come into Supta Baddha Konasana, which is lying down, and you'll need your 2 bricks. Everybody use their bricks here. I know some of you might not need them, but we want to relax into this today. So coming down onto the floor, onto your back, bring your feet, soles of your feet together, and then let your knees drop out. Your legs are bent now. Let your knees drop out and put the bricks somewhere under your thighs or your knees, just so that you get a bit of support there on the lower side of the brick, if that's comfortable. If you want something under your head here, please feel free to make yourself comfortable at the top end. Hands, I was going to say on your tummy, if that's comfortable, or maybe on goalposts if you want to open your shoulders at the same time, so reflecting what's happening down in your legs and thighs. And then just find that Ujjayi breath. So probably because you're lying down, you can do it a little bit quieter. But just find the breath and start to try and use the exhale to release things. So we're focusing today on our hips, particularly on our hips. Can't move our hips without other parts, but focusing on the hips. So here, try and release through your hips. So try and direct, as you exhale, try and focus on the muscle groups round about your hip area. Your inner thighs will be holding on. So they are trying to counterpose what's happening here. So they're particularly what we need to try and release with the exhale. So think of releasing the inner thighs so that your legs become much heavier on the bricks. And what we're using here in our hips particularly are called our deep 6. Nothing to do with our 6-packs. This is in the back of your body more, under your glutes. So you've got 3 glutes, and then under them is the deep 6 muscles, which they weave in and out of your hip joint and socket. They attach to your femur at the top of your legs, and they attach to your sacrum, so the base of your spine, and they also attach to your pelvis. So a lot of attachment going on there, and they're the 6 quite short muscles, but they are the 6 muscles that really need to function for us to be able to do what we're doing now, which is lateral rotation. So turning your legs out. So although when I say squeeze the butt when we're doing something like this, It's actually the deep six muscles underneath the glutes that you're probably focusing on that are doing all the work. The other muscles do work too. So see how it goes now. Maybe with my talking and listening to that, you've relaxed your legs a little bit more. They're feeling heavier. And maybe you can sort of also feel that you've let go a little bit of what was being used to rotate your legs out into that position. So then you can either keep the breath going for a second or let it go. We're going to keep using it, but lift your legs up one at a time towards center, roll them up. Just notice any rebound, particularly on the outside of your hips there. Maybe you can feel it. I've done this a few times in the last couple of days, so I can really feel it in mine. Move the bricks carefully out the way so that you've got them handy if we need them. And then one leg at a time, please bring your knees up into Apanasana wind pose. So you're bringing your thighs towards your belly, basically. One leg at a time. I say one leg at a time because if you try to do both, those muscles in the back of your hips that we've just been talking about, your glutes particularly here, and your hip flexors in the front, you'll pull things. If you try and do them both at once, that's why I say do one leg at a time, because you can actually affect the SI joints, the tiny joints that join your legs to your pelvis and your spine. So let's just, in Apanasana, hands can be behind your thighs or hands can be on your shins here. If they're on your shins, watch you're not pulling your legs out to the side. We want the knees coming directly up towards the shoulders. And here you can feel you're starting to open up the back of the lower back, particularly here. So your lumbar muscles here we're working on, the ones that run between your ribs particularly and the base of your spine here. You might can feel those thick long muscles there. There's 2 or 3 groups there that have been involved in this, and we're trying to stretch them gently by just gently moving the knees towards the chest, but not pulling forcefully, and then just release. So find your breath again and do 2 or 3 breaths. As you inhale, you release your knees away from you slightly. As you exhale, just slowly draw the knees towards you, finding your Ujjayi breath again if you can. But you decide how strong you need to work with, and if you can slow it down, kind of count to 4, then you'll get more from this if you're not just forcing your way through it and doing it too quickly. So just think of gently moving, opening and releasing the back of the hips and the lower back here. And after the next one, let the left foot come back down to the floor. Stretch that foot away from you, keeping your right leg up in half Apanasana. So again, hands can be behind the thighs or on the shins. And just have one long draw inwards there. So inhale, and then as you exhale, draw that knee in and then hold it for 2 or 3 breaths in that position. So again, you're not squeezing to the point of discomfort here, but just as much as it's comfortable, draw that knee inwards. And again, think of the knee coming up towards the sort of collarbone rather than outwards. So if you've rolled outwards, draw your thigh back in a little bit. Using that Ujjayi breath still. I won't keep cueing it, but do try and use it because it'll help you pace yourself. Now, while you're here, just take your focus down to your right hip or whichever knee you've got bent in, that hip. Take the focus down, feel the back of your body, feel that space moving round into the back of your thigh and your hamstring. We won't really focus on the front of the body, but we are contracting the front hip flexors, particularly here, your psoas muscles. But if you focus here on the open side, just notice how it is, because we're going to do the other one now and see the difference. So let go when you've finished your next breath. Place that foot down. Carefully slide it along the floor. I'm saying carefully, it sounds like we're all old people, but if you move too quickly when you've opened muscles, you can't damage them. So just be gentle with yourself. Left leg now comes in into half Kapotanasana. Same thing, inhale and then as you exhale, draw it in as far as is comfortable and just hold it there. Be careful of knees here. If you're feeling this on your knee, put your hand behind your thigh. That's much less pressure on your knee then. But what we're trying to do, sorry, is open, in my case here, the left hip now. Just watch again that you've not rolled out or you'll be opening the wrong part. Excuse me. Using that Ujjayi breath to try and release a little bit more, to find a bit more space. And then focus on that hip and see if you can see any difference from the other side. Now, you might be completely symmetrical, but not many of us are. And I know this is it feels like I've got a shorter leg on this side often. It's my hip, it's called hip hiking. Basically, this hip feels a little bit higher. Some of you might have experienced that on the other side. It's to do with the QL muscles on the back of your body here, your quadratus lumborum, and various other muscles, but basically you've shortened slightly on the back of your body, or you may, like me, have lordosis, which is that curve in your spine. Okay, we're going to let go of that leg gently to the floor, release it away. I have to keep popping up and down. Okay, so bring your right knee in, foot flat to the floor, bent leg. You might want your foot further away from you at this point. It depends on how you feel. We're going to bring the left leg up. We're going to do that lateral rotation again. So rolling that hip out and opening the knee. And then we're going to bring the foot up and come into figure of four. You're coming into. If I said that earlier, you might have got there quicker. Okay, so figure of fours. Leg is turned out again like we did at the beginning. And you've got your foot flexed on the leg that's turned out so that we've got no torquing through the knee. We've got sort of soft tissue on soft tissue here. You don't want to feel any bones pressing into bones here. As I say, if you take your foot that's on the floor a little bit further away, there won't be quite such a pressure on you. This is a version of pigeon in effect. So if you can feel it, it should be roughly in the back of your hip, roughly the same position you could feel in pigeon, which we'll do later. So bringing that knee in closer, if you're not experiencing anything, will open it a little bit more on the left-hand side. So it's my left leg that's bent when I'm talking here. Find your Ujjayi breath, see if you can release a little bit more again. Noticing what's holding on. Noticing, in my case, I can feel it quite lumpy in there behind the back of my body and on my left hip. I know this is my tight side. A lot of this is from sitting down too much that we get this tightness. So those of you that work through the day sitting down might feel this a little bit more. If it's in your practice here, you can stay here, or if you want to try, pop your hands out to the side, and then we're just going to gently roll over to the side that the foot is on the floor. So I'm rolling over to the right and my left leg's coming over my body and the foot's coming down to the floor. So it's quite a big twist, this one. Be careful. If you need to bring a brick in, do. If you get halfway and think, I don't like that, then please come back. If you can get right over, lift that top shoulder if you need to. Allow your body, your upper body to come with you. And then see what's happened with that knee. It may have rolled down and forward now, the one that was in the figure of four. See if you can just use your opposite hand and just gently open that knee up a little bit more. So you're taking your right hand on your left thigh here and just opening up a little bit more into that figure of four shape. You may be feeling things that you haven't felt for a long time here. There are lots of muscle groups in there and lots of quite small but quite strong muscles. And it may be that one or the other may have been that they're weaker, maybe that they're a little bit too active. Whatever you're feeling, it's doing you good, hopefully. If it's ever pain, please come out of it. Okay, so hands to the floor, draw the tummy muscles in. If you need to help your leg by uncrossing first, then please do. Otherwise, try and roll up using your abdominal muscles to help your lower back there to come back up to the top. Release that foot to the floor. Take the right leg away now, stretch that leg out and bring the left leg back into half Kapotanasana. Popping your hands behind your thighs this time rather than on your shins, just to stop any pressure through your knee. It's just done a big job there, so don't force through the knee. Feel that opening through the back of the hip again. Might be a bit easier. Pop that foot to the floor, then do the same thing on the other side. Come into your figure of four. Know where we're going now, much easier. So getting into the figure of four, foot as close as you're comfortable. Closer you are, the more the sensation will be in the hip. Might be you don't get the same sensation in this hip. Mine certainly isn't. I can feel there's not the same, what's the word? Messages coming back from this. So I'm just going to try and gently open my right leg that's folded by using my right hand just to gently press open that leg a little bit further until I can get a reaction in there. So this is all telling us something about our hips, about our idiosyncrasies. And being aware of these things helps you to save injury, for one thing. But it helps you to realise when you're working on areas. You have to work on both to balance, because my left side's tight and my right side's flexing. So I need to balance that, obviously, by stretching and contracting on the other side. But if you do too much one way, if you haven't already and you want to, then roll over into that twist as well, onto that side. So yeah, you need to do both though. If you only work on the side that you think needs it, then you'll cause imbalance somewhere else in your body. So we need to always do both sides, counterpose what we're doing. Still using your Ujjayi breath, I hope. As I say, if you've rolled over and you want to uncross your legs before coming up, because it's a little bit easier, then please do. Engage the tummy muscles, roll back up to the top, uncross the leg, bring the feet to the floor. Take your left leg away left leg away this time, and bring the right knee into Kapotanasana, drawing it in from behind the knee or behind the thigh. Draw it in, hold as close to your body as is comfortable. Notice what feels like it's opening now, different sensations around the back of the hip, that area that we often call the hip crease when we're working. That area there is very open now. You might be feeling different little muscles that you didn't think you had. Okay, put the foot to the floor. So we're going to work on that right leg again here. So left leg here is just a counterbalance. It can be straight out or it can be just released to the side. It's your balance. We're going to come into half happy baby. So bring your right knee in again towards your chest. Open up your lower leg, so stretch it up towards the ceiling a little bit, but your right knee is still in towards your chest as if you're in Kapotanasana. Your foot is flexed and facing the ceiling, and then walk your hands up your calves to wherever is comfortable. Don't need to get a hold of the foot and do fancy things this morning, just hold your calf this morning, and then you're going to draw that knee, the bent knee, over towards the outside of your right shoulder. So your knee is moving outwards this time, not towards your chest. Keep that foot flexed, keep that sort of 90-degree angle behind your thigh and your calf if you can. And then just draw that thigh down to wherever you can comfortably. So if you can't quite reach up your shins, you can hold the back of your thigh here and still put the calf and shin and foot into the same position. So just try and draw that thigh down. So you're opening up your hip in a different direction here. It's not directly coming up towards your chest. It's going out towards the outside of your shoulder, towards that corner of the mat. Find the Ujjayi breath and try and release a little bit into this. So watch the other leg. It's trying to counterbalance this. Just watch it's not allowing you to twist or do anything weird. And then focus on your right hip and just breathe 2 or 3 breaths to try and release into this happy baby. If you can't hold your foot here, then that's fine. If you can get into the correct position, which is bringing your elbow into the inside of your shin, and your foot is still flexed facing the ceiling, and your thigh is going much more out the way now. That's quite powerful in your shoulder, so be wary. Okay, so then bring that leg down carefully. Bring your foot back to the floor, take that leg away, have a little stretch through that leg, then bring the other leg in when you're ready. Now please be careful of your SI joints here, so carefully take that leg in, using your other leg to counterbalance, finding the same position. So half happy baby on the other side, drawing that knee outwards slightly, towards outside of your left shoulder, opening up the calf. So you've got a right angle roughly as much as you can behind your leg, walking the hands up the shin, maybe just to start before you even try and grab a hold of it. If it's in your practice normally, this you might can get into happy baby, half happy baby straight away. But even not doing both legs at once does teach us something about which side gets into it easily and which side doesn't. So here in half happy baby, you might can reach your foot, you might can do the elbow inside the leg thing. Keep that foot flexed, facing the ceiling. Draw the heel up. I had a yoga teacher, George, lovely man, who used to come up to me when I was doing happy baby and push my legs into position and force his weight down in through my hips. And I'm not sure that was probably the right thing to do, but once you got there into that position, it was a very deep feeling through your hips, and there's something about releasing your hips. Well, your hips are tied to your emotions, so that's probably what it was. It really was quite uplifting when you came out of it. Okay, so take the leg down carefully, bring your leg down to the floor. Have a stretch through that left leg now. Take your foot flex and your heel away from you, really stretch out. Both legs if you feel like doing it. And then bring your feet into the floor, onto the floor again, bent knees. Bring them in quite close to your bottom. We're not going to bridge it, but quite close to your bottom. And take them close together or maybe hip distance apart. And all we're going to do here is windscreen wiper. Actually, sorry, bring the feet together first of all in that position. So close together, knees together, ankles together. Hands out to the side to just support you and just do some windscreen wipers. So rocking backwards and forwards across your hips. Not really wipers because our knees are together. It's just one wiper going backwards and forwards. So just rolling onto one edge of the foot, rolling onto the other edge. Take it slowly. You won't get completely over maybe, so don't try and force yourself. It's just giving a little bit of a massage through the lower hip area here. And notice how far you can go when your feet are together and how it feels. Okay, so then stop and neutral and widen your feet to hip distance. Same thing. So already I can feel a certain amount of instability. Beware here, just take it easy. So quite different when the both legs aren't supporting each other and your hips are working quite together. So when you've opened your legs a little bit wider, there's a lot more balance in my case, having to go through my pelvic region here to control the movement. And then come back to neutral, take the legs wider now, sit still in towards your bottom, so, and the same thing, so windscreen wiper again. So I don't know what you're experiencing. This is all experiential and it's all different for everybody. But for me, straight away, that moved into my front of my legs and hips. I can feel the stretch in my quads, etc., as I rock backwards and forwards here in wide leg wipers. So come to neutral, bring the feet back together. Take the feet a little bit further away from you now. Same thing, experiment. Feet together, feet hip distance, feet wider. Do it in your own time. Just have a little rock through. So straight away from me, feet together, I can't get over as far because my legs are further away from me. My hips haven't got the same mobility, obviously, there. And then trying my feet at hip distance, so everybody do your own thing, but if you're ready to move on to that, try that. A lot more mobile because the legs are slightly separate. interesting because it feels a lot more stable in my case with my legs further away than it did close together, close to my bottom. And then I'm going to try wide leg further away. And we know from having done this before, this comes much further, the twist up into the front of your body, up towards the ribs almost. So the hips are moving. There's a lot going on in the front of the body at the same time. Nothing can move on its own. Okay, so come back to neutral. Forgot where we're going now. Okay, so we're going to take bridge now. Put the paper at the wrong end of the list. Okay, bridge. Bringing our feet in, hip distance apart. In as close to your bottom as you can, your heels. We'll take 3 bridge and then 3 with the arms. If you don't want to use the arms, then please just do 6 normal bridge. Using your Ujjayi breath again. So remember that pelvic tilt before we start. So tilt your pelvis up. Bring your pubic bone and pelvic bones up towards your belly button so that you connect and contract on the front of your body, and you're releasing and making space on that lower back area. So keeping that in mind, when we inhale, we lift up. Keeping that little connection there through the pelvic tilt. Lift up, open up, squeeze the glutes gently to open up the hip flexors, the psoas on the front of the body, and then release back down on the exhale. So taking it in your own time, on your own breath, using the Ujjayi breath. Inhaling up, press gently into the feet, move the shins towards the wall in front of you, opening up the quads, lifting up through the hip flexors. Thinking of the lower body here or in bridge today rather than up towards the shoulders, but just going to wherever you're comfortable. Third one, rolling up through, squeezing the glutes. So 3 glutes here we're squeezing. You've got your maximus, which is on the superficial side of you, so nearer your skin. That's the big one, the big boy. Medius. If you're ready to use your arms as well, please do. Otherwise, just another 2 or 3 bridge as it was. So gluteus maximus almost makes me think of the gladiator, that one for some reason. It is a big muscle. It's the strongest, most powerful muscle in your body, the maximus. So it's the one on the top layer, the one that most people think of when they're told to now stop at the top and squeeze your glutes. So I say glutes, it's plural. So the second one, it's layered. Medius, then minimus is underneath. But all of them are strong in their own way, and all of them need to work to lift here and open up the front of the body. And then find your next exhale and release yourself back down to the floor. And then we're going to come over. Oh no, we're not, sorry, stay still. We're going to take Pranayama. So we're walking, hips stay still on the floor here, nothing moves in the middle of you. You walk your feet to the left side into a sort of curvy shape to wherever you can, just comfortably. And then you lift and shuffle your shoulders over and your head over towards the same side. So you come into banana shape, but the middle of your body has just stayed where it was. Watch your right side hasn't lifted up as you've gone towards the left. So try and drop your right waist and hip back down to the floor. Take the arms up above the head if you're comfortable. Elbows can be bent if it's easier. Just have a little bit of a stretch here through the right side of the hips here we're thinking of. Down into the right thighs. Up to the right side of your waist. So try and keep that right side heavy. Try and keep your right hip down. And use your breath again. And then moving over to centre. One party at a time, and then walk over one party at a time to the other side. I'm having a big stretch there on the left-hand side. So your shoulders might feel a bit tight here. We haven't obviously done too much on them. So really just focus from your waist downwards on the left side of your body here. Even crossing your feet if you feel you want to bring a little bit more of a stretch through your left ankle. But really thinking about the hips. So try and keep that left hip heavy on the floor. Notice if you've rolled. Notice if it's different from the other side of your body. And walking back to centre, and we're now coming over onto our fronts and bringing ourselves up into all fours. That was a bit of a shock. Take your time because we have been lying on our backs for quite a bit. We will go back down in a second. We're not going up from here. So those of you in all fours, find your alignment. Remember that inner elbow turning helps the forearms to be a bit stronger. Find the hips and have a little circle of your hips, and then find them stopping directly over your knees. And then take 2 or 3 cat-cows in your own time with your Ujjayi breath. So inhale in neutral, exhale into cat. So you're lifting the head lower and lifting the heart up. Inhaling into cow, so the tail comes up, you ripple through the spine, and you lift up into cow back. So inhale is cow, exhale is cat. We're always moving first from the tail in cat-cow. So focus on your tail now as you start both movements, and feel it move from there. And then come to neutral. We're going to take a few dog lifts here. So as if it was a dog having a wee, remember. So move into your hands and your left knee. Keep that tummy engaged to support the lower back. So lift your tummy up a little bit. Draw your shoulders back together towards each other on the back of your body. And then lifting up on an inhale, we're taking the right leg out. In the position it's in, we're just lifting it up and using that deep 6 set of muscles again. So we're opening up the leg up to the right hand side. So inhaling up, exhaling down. Take it slowly. Slower you work, the harder you're working those muscles. The faster you work, you're not doing the same thing. You're not getting the same benefits. So use the breath to control your movement. Again, 4 and 5 on that side. Really engaging with what's happening in that area of your hip as you lift up. Pop that knee down, stabilize yourself, move into the right knee, take it to the left side, inhaling up. Trying to keep that alignment, remember, in your body. Keep a nice long body, keep some nice strong arms to support you. Keep that tummy engaged as you lift up. Inhaling up, remember, exhaling down. Try to keep everything else stable and strong and just move through that point of your hip. Release back down. Going back to the right side now, so we're going to lift that leg up and we're going to hold it in the same position we've been in, and then we're just going to take some knee circles in one direction. So you're just drawing with a pencil on the front of your knee, you'll be drawing a little circle, keeping that alignment, keeping that stability in the rest of your body, and just feeling what's happening in your hip. It's not your knee that's moving here, it's your hip that's moving. Go the other direction then when you're ready. If the leg gets too heavy, please take it down. Have a rest in child's pose. And then bring that knee down. If you need to take it into child's pose in between, please do. Otherwise, moving into the other side. Again, it's the hip that's moving. So really focus on your hip now to draw those circles. Forget what the knee's doing. Take it in both directions, remember. Notice what else is having to get engaged here. Obviously the stability in your arms, etc. But notice your tummy muscles having to get engaged to stabilize this movement. And then release that leg to the floor. take your big toes together, knees out to the width of the mat, and sit back into wide leg child's pose. Elbows come into the floor. Cross the hands and pop your head onto your hands then. And just release. So child's pose is a massive lower back releaser. It's obviously it's the opposite of Apanasana that we did earlier. So child's pose, normal, legs back, under your knees under your body. Puts quite a lot of force through your knees, so you have to be careful of that. But the lower back will open there. It will be the central points. The points that often, when we're sitting down, get very tight. Here in wide leg child's pose, you might can feel it's a different sensation through the back of the lower back. It moves out towards your waist area. So these muscles aren't just long, thin lines. They attach in quite big masses across your pelvic area. So no point in just stretching one side of it by having your knees under you and not stretching the outside of it. So here we're just opening up a little bit wider towards the waist. And then come back when you're ready up into tabletop. We're going to do some leg lifts here and use that crease that I talked about. This where the thigh, the hamstring, the top of the hamstring would meet your buttock basically. So that line across there is what we're talking about. So that's where you're moving from. So if you can't quite connect, pop your finger there, just poke into the muscles there. That's what you're using to lift the leg here. So in all fours, take the right leg out, toe on the floor, out as far as is comfortable, and roll onto the ball of the foot and press gently through the heels. So your leg switches on then. Engage the tummy muscles. We're going to lift that leg. So now focus on that hip hinge area on the back of that hip and thigh. When you're ready, inhale, lift the leg up. Really focusing on what you're using to lift. Exhale, lower. Doesn't need to quite touch the floor if you want to make it a little bit harder. Inhale, lift. So you're taking it up to where you can go to, but up to about hip height, no higher. Lower. Stabilize everything else, including your chin for your neck. Really focusing on that little hip hinge. That's all the muscles working in there to lift and open. So you're switching on your glutes, obviously, to lift here. But rather than thinking of the glutes, just focus on that little hingy area. Feel the opening on your hip flexor as you do this on the front. Your psoas muscle is the one that attaches your leg on the front to your hip. And then lower the knee. Bring that knee forward then under you. And then just sit back with a long left leg. So you're kneeling on one leg effectively. And just releasing. Be careful of your knee here. If it's too strong, don't sit back too far on it. So it's like half child's pose. You can come down to the floor if you want a little bit more of a stretch through that hip. And then bring yourself up and we'll take that on the other side. So back to tabletop to begin with. Attach yourself to the hip hinge on your left side or the opposite side now. Take the foot back, still on the floor. Roll onto your ball of your foot. Press gently through the heel, switch on that leg. Switch on your tummy muscles. When you're engaged, inhale, Ujjayi breath, remember. Inhale, lift up to wherever's comfortable. Exhale, lower. Take it even slower on this side if you can. Try not to touch the floor exactly, just tip the floor. Just watch you've not rolled slightly. Watch your hips are still parallel to the floor. Really looking at what's moving here. Focusing on your breath and focusing on your hips. And then bring that knee forward, same thing. Be careful of knees here. Do not put the pressure through if you know that you've got dodgy knees. You can stay up and still get that extension through the back of the hip. If you can, sit down onto it and release. If you can, come down to your elbows, release a little bit further. but the top one will still give you an extension. Find a soft Ujjayi breath, maybe now just to release for 2 or 3 breaths. And then bring yourself back up off that knee, first of all, and then take that leg back and come down onto your tummy into prone position. And pop your hands again on top of each other and your head on your hands. Excuse me. Upper body's feeling a bit left out this morning, but we'll do something with it later in the week. Okay, so here we're just doing some leg folds and lifts. So right leg we're working on first of all. Again, that hip hinge. Fold at the knee so your foot comes up parallel to the ceiling again. So you've got that right angle behind your knee and thigh. And then we're just going to think about bringing that heel in towards your bottom. So inhale, exhale, bring the heel in towards your bottom. You can lift up if you want on the chest, if you want to just contract your back, but try and just use your hip muscles here. So 2 or 3, just bringing the heel in. Doesn't feel like you're doing an awful lot. You are really opening up the front of your leg here. But you're having to contract and support that leg quite a bit. So try and do it really slowly. We often do these as 3 short kicks, but if you try and do it slowly, you might realise there's a lot more effort having to go into it. Squeezing the heel as close as you can to the bottom. And then let that foot come down. Same thing on the other side. So find that right angle thing again. Inhale as you exhale, your heel's coming towards your bottom. And then release. Bring the right leg in again, heel towards the bottom, and see if you can take your right hand round now and either catch the foot or catch your trousers or something there. And just bring that heel in as close as you can to your bottom. So try and keep your head down here, release the upper body, and just open up through the front of the hips here. So I think when we think hips, we often think the back of the body, but there's a lot going on the front of the hips as well, because obviously you couldn't move your legs if it was all in the back of your body. You need to have muscles that move on the front of your body. Could call them abdominals, I suppose, but they are attached to your hips. Release that foot, bring the other one in, have a nice big stretch through that side. Still using the Ujjayi breath, see if you can release a little bit more, see if the heel can come a little bit closer. Interestingly, when I broke my knee and leg, I couldn't hardly get my leg up off the floor, certainly could hardly get it past right angle. And just a little bit of yoga, well, several years of yoga. And look at this, I'm back into my bottom and heel are connected. Yoga is great for recovering from these sort of injuries. Bring the foot back down, still on your tummy now. I'm going to try and lift the whole leg. Now, this is quite a powerful thing, so be careful. Engage the tummy muscles. So let's connect, first of all, to that floor with the pelvic bones pressing gently into the floor and the pubic bone, and draw the tummy muscle, draw the belly button upwards then. So lift it off the floor as if you had a drawing pin sitting under your belly. And that's the tummy muscles are now engaged. Your glutes may have already switched on, but you're going to have to switch them on anyway to do this. So we're working on the right leg, head still down, and we're just going to focus on that hip hinge and see if you can lift the leg, toes pointed, off the floor. Just lift it up to wherever you're comfortable and lower. Lift on the inhale and lower on the exhale. A couple more on this side and then we'll move to the other side. Keep that front of the body engaged, otherwise the pressure goes onto the lower back. And then the other side, move to the other leg. And then if you want to try, have a rest otherwise. If you want to try 2 or 3 with both legs. So half locust we're moving into here. So you really have to contract that upper part of your lower back. Your glutes really have to switch on here. Also the erector spinae, which is a group of muscles that run from your base of your skull right down through to your tailbone and your hips. 2 or 3 muscles in there, or quite a few muscles actually, and tendons, etc. It's a group, but that's our posture muscles. So they're also getting involved here, the tailbone lifting up. And if you sit again a lot, you'll probably find that this is quite uncomfortable. Bring yourself back to the floor, have a rest, let your feet turn in and your hips turn out. Just have a break there, everybody. And then upper body, a little bit of strength here needed. Bring the hands in, we're going to take seals. So the hands face a little bit out, width of the mat. Elbows are kind of just below your shoulders, I find, but you have to kind of find the right position for comfort here. And then all we're doing is tucking the chin, finding that long back of neck and working the upper back here to lift. But we have to also bring the feet, you can have them hip width or you can have them wider here, which isn't quite as strong in your lower back. But find that pelvic connection again, first of all, to the floor. Squeeze the glutes, engage them. And when you're ready, inhale, press into the hands and lift up into seal. And hold. So you should have nice long arms, elbows are not locked, but they're wrist, elbow, shoulders connection still here. It's a little bit difficult because you're not got one stacked on top of the other. But you're using your lower back muscles now. So squeeze your glutes to lift. Draw that tummy in a little bit in this position if you can. Press your pelvis gently into the floor. And breathe. And then lower carefully down to the floor. Have a rest if you need it, otherwise we're going into Pranayama on your front. So walking your feet to one side, keeping your belly and your chest on the floor, and moving the top half of you to the same side as your feet. So into prone Pranayama, slightly different. Head has to kind of find its own position here, might be on your arm. So just focusing again, don't worry about the top half stretching too far. Think about the bottom half. See if you can cross that foot without compromising your hips and taking them too much off the floor. Finding a big opening there through the lower body, on your waist area and down through your hips and down through into your IT band and your thighs. Using the breath to see if you can release and drop that hip a little bit more into the floor. Make the legs a bit heavier. And then walking over to the other side into Pranayama. As I say, don't worry too much about the upper body in this side in this one, but thinking about maybe crossing the legs again if you can. Trying not to roll. And then seeing if you can release with the breath. So your glutes as a threesome, and particularly the big boy, are the strongest muscles, as I've said, in your body, or the strongest muscle is your glute max. Something that's really strong sometimes has trouble letting go. It thinks it's got to always be the one supporting. And this applies to life as well, remember. We have to learn to release and relax and let go a little bit. Because if we hold on and are completely tense all the time, then eventually we'll break or get stuck. So use that exhale always to release. And then come back to neutral when you're ready. And we're going to push up again when you're ready. And we're going to rock back and bring that right foot forward, carefully taking it forward. Your hips might be a little bit jaded here. So bringing the right foot forward into low lunge. So you can have your hip over your knee at the back if you don't feel like moving forward too far and opening the hip flexor. If you can, come into low lunge in a normal position and do. We're not doing too much with the upper body, but lift the tummy off the thighs. We're just moving into that front foot. So try and move the knee forward a little bit and try and sink the hips down a little bit towards the floor. If you're feeling this through your knee at the back particularly, tuck your toes and come up onto the back foot. So roll up onto the ball of the foot. It's not quite low lunge, but you can then take that foot backwards and still get that nice stretch through the hip flexor. But it takes the pressure off your knee that way. Or you can bring the knee forward. Okay, so then take that foot forward back, rock back, bring the left foot forward into low lunge. Same thing, we're just kind of rocking backwards and forwards here to feel that difference in stretches. Take that back knee back a little bit more if you can. Lowering the bottom downwards so that we open up through the back of the hamstring and the front foot and the front of the right leg. Taking that front foot back, we're going to rock back and we're going to come into lizard now. So bring your right hand in a little bit more towards centre. So hands are both in front, but instead of being wider, so your foot can come through, your foot's going to the outside of the right hand this time. So stepping forward, bringing the right foot forward. Bring it in so your shoulder and your inner leg are kind of connected there. And then you can just stay here. You can keep that back knee in a little bit. If it's more comfortable for you, you can come up onto your back toes again if you want to. And you can roll onto the outside edge of that front foot to open up using your deep six muscles again. So releasing and opening up that leg. So you should feel a little bit more on the outside of the back of your hip here. We'll all be experiencing different things here. Some of us may not be experiencing anything. If you're hypermobile or particularly flexible in your hips, then super duper. But it doesn't mean you don't do these things to keep them flexible and to keep that health there. Healthy hips are good. Okay, so then take that foot back, same thing other side. So move your hands over, rock back, bring that left foot forward now. Kind of support your arm and your shin together. Back knee can be in, remember, toes can be up onto the ball if it's easier. Roll that front foot out if you can and release. Keep that tummy engaged, keep that pelvis tucked a little bit. See if you can tuck your bottom under a little bit more. Notice if this is completely different on this side to the other. I say that because mine is. As always, it's that left side. This is my strong side. So interestingly, nothing like is flexible. And that was what I was saying. It can't always do the strong work, or it'll become so tense, it'll become immobile. And take that foot back. Now, we're going to go into pigeon. For those of you that's able to do this, that's fine. Option here is to bring that. So we're all going to have our hands at the front. We're going to take our right knee out to the outside edge of the mat. So well outside of the hand. If that's enough for you, you can then roll over and just sit down onto that hip. And that will give you a similar sensation to pigeon, one version. If that's enough for you, you can sit up if it's too strong, or you can come down in it. You're going to come into pigeon, you're going to come back, take that knee out to the side. You can bring the foot out of the way, but it doesn't need to now be parallel to the front of the mat, because that is not good for your knee. If you can do that, then fine. But if that's not the way your hips turn, and mine don't, then don't try to force it. Walk that back knee in towards centre. So make sure that leg's going out behind you. Sorry, I should have said grab your brick before we did this, if you need it. So we're into that position. And then sit back. So walk that back leg backwards so that you feel you're rolling back to sit down on that right hip, the bent leg. You can then bring a brick in if it's comfortable and it's a bit high. So you can bring a brick in to help support you there. Bring a cushion in if you need something lower. Or you can just hang out. Some people will get their hip down to the floor. Again, my hips do not do that. Don't think they ever will. You can come down onto your elbows. And that puts a little bit more weight through that. There should be no weight going through. Your knee should be well out of the way, not underneath you. So if it's not, shuffle until you've used that deep six group of muscles and take that leg out. Here's where the Ujjayi breath comes in. So really focus on your Ujjayi breath. Use it to take your mind off everything that is going on in your hips. Because your mind will be telling you things that you don't really need to know at the moment. Just try and focus on the breath and let the pose do its thing. And then coming up carefully and lifting off that front leg. Have a break in between if you need to. Otherwise, back into tabletop, taking the left knee this time. Be careful, it may be different on this side, remember. Have your brick ready. Left knee well out of the way on the outside of the mat. Bring the front foot forward if it's comfortable. Bring the back leg in so it's not wandered off to the side. Look down, check it. And then walk it backwards so that you start to roll onto that hip. For those of you that don't want to do that, just roll onto that hip. Let your body go with you. So walking back, bringing the brick in if you need it, or if it can fit underneath you. Might be different on this side. Keeping that back leg in towards centre, though we often wander off and then you won't get the same sensation. Moving down onto your elbows if you want a little bit more through that hip. Even down onto the floor. Some of you will be capable of just folding into this. But rather than letting your ego run away with yourselves, and I don't like to point this out, there are things some of us can do and things some of us can't. But it may be more down to your anatomy and your physiology than down to the fact that it may be down to lots of hard work. It may be down to lucky genes. But it may be just that your hips don't move in that direction. So never force your body into something that it doesn't want to do. Ease into it slowly, carefully, and see how far you can go. Maybe each time you'll go a bit further. Okay, so coming off this leg, hope you've all used your Ujjayi breath there to get you through that one. The pigeon's a Marmite pose, definitely. Coming down again, back onto our backs. Carefully. When you're on your back, bring your feet, your knees bent again, bring your feet back inwards, about the width of the mat, and not too close to you. And then just let your knees move in towards each other and come together. And let them release. Let the legs support each other. Keep your feet flat on the floor if you can, rather than rolling inwards with the foot. Excuse me. And take 2 or 3 breaths here, just allowing the hips to release in the opposite direction from what we've just turned them in. So our pelvis, that ball and socket there, we're not all made to point forward. Some of us point out the way, some of us point in the way. You might be knock-kneed or you might be splay-footed. That's often an indication of how your hips are settled and how you were born, basically. We can't change these things. And the massive joint and the massive amount of bone, etc., in the area in your pelvis, you can't change that. What we can do is help the muscles that support it to be healthy and to be flexible and to be strong. So then bring your knees back up and take yourself into Shavasana. So take your legs out to about the width of the mat, and then allow your hips to roll out. So again, your deep six muscles, but they're not really having to work here. You're just letting them fold out. So let your feet turn out and let your legs roll out with them. So you should feel quite a bit of space across your abdominal area, as if your pelvic joints have rolled outwards on the front of your body and your bottom's kind of tucked under. That's the feeling in Shavasana. And then just let yourself release into Shavasana. So find your Ujjayi breath again and just have a few breaths to yourself, focusing particularly on that part of the body we've worked on. So from your waist down to the top of your thighs, basically on the back of your body. Feel that connection to the back of your body, your lumbar region, your pelvis. Move down to it now from the back of your skull. Find that point in the back of your skull and imagine those big muscles, the erector spinae, 2 or 3 of them that are moving down the side of your spine. Imagine the line of your spine, those muscles either side moving right down. Some of them stop a little way down. One of them in particular goes right down through to your hips. So imagine that line along the back of your body. Follow it through. Visualizing all the muscles and tendons then that are wrapping around the joints in your hips. We don't need to know the names. We don't need to know how many there are. Or really, sometimes we don't even need to know what they're doing. It does help to know what they do so that we can work on them properly and so that we can avoid injury. But here, just visualize all that's going on in your hips there. Imagine your thigh bone, your femur that comes up. It has what's called a trochanter on it, that bobbly bit at the top, the ball that goes into the socket, the greater trochanter. And then it has a little bobble further down, and the muscles join on through your hips, all through, on not all of them, but some of them are joined on to those points so that your legs can move. Imagine the layers, visualize the layers of your glutes. So you've got your gluteus maximus on the top, nearest the top of your skin. Big, big muscle, and then underneath slightly is the medius and then the minimus. Both slightly smaller, but all just as strong. Imagine all the nerves in that area now, sending messages back and forth to you. So when you focus on one point of it, that's what sends the message back to you. Lots and lots, thousands of nerves. Feel the energy now in your hips that you've given that area. Perhaps space now there. And openness for things to flow through and flow out of. Our hips are particularly linked to our emotions. So sometimes after a class like this, people feel quite emotional, and there's a reason for that. It's a bit like the shoulders that hold your tension. Well, your hips are even bigger, so they hold even more tension and emotions. So please be aware of that and don't wonder why you're feeling a bit funny after a class like this. So just take a few more Ujjayi breaths, starting with a little stronger one and then softening as you go downwards. Maybe even sighing the breath out through the mouth this time. Letting go of anything that's still being held there that you don't need physically and emotionally. Those that want to finish class, please start to have a stretch, a rock and roll, a move, whatever you feel you need to before we come back up to sitting. So take it slowly, shake things out a little bit, waken them up. Those that want to stay in Shavasana, please do so. I'll be going in a minute. Roll over onto your side, everybody, if you haven't already done so. Take a moment just to change planes because you've been down on your back for quite a while, so take it easy coming back up. When you come back up into Sukhasana, our easy pose, notice how your hips feel. Mine feels great, actually. And then think about that erector spinae muscle group in the back of your body and switch it on and lift up through. Find your posture points again. Engage that long set of muscles in the back of your body. Thank you, everybody, for your practice this morning. Please take it easy on your hips because you've done a lot of work and a lot of different directive movement in it. Please take it easy. We're not all Elvis Presley, so don't be going and doing anything too wild. But hopefully you'll be moving smoother today after that. Thank you and namaste.